When The Lord of the Rings arrived in 2001, it reshaped fantasy cinema forever. Peter Jackson's adaptation contained countless secrets hidden in plain sight. These are 20 hidden details you completely missed in The Lord of the Rings. Number 20. The Hobbiton set near Matamata, New Zealand wasn't constructed weeks before cameras arrived. Production designer Grant Major and his team built the entire village a full year ahead of principal photography. This decision allowed grass to grow naturally around hobbit holes and gardens to flourish authentically. The Shire needed to feel lived in, not freshly painted for cameras. Weathering and natural growth transformed artificial construction into a breathing location. Cinematographer Andrew Lesnie captured this realism in every frame, making audiences believe hobbits truly inhabited these rolling hills. The investment paid off spectacularly, as Hobbiton remains a major tourist destination, visited by thousands annually who want to experience a world that feels genuinely real rather than manufactured for a Hollywood production. Number 19. Before Viggo Mortensen embodied Aragorn, Stuart Townsend had already been cast and was preparing for the role. Townsend arrived in New Zealand and began rehearsals alongside the cast. Director Peter Jackson watched dailies and grew concerned that Townsend appeared too youthful for a character who had lived 87 years. The decision to recast came just days into filming, creating enormous production pressure. Producer Fran Walsh scrambled to find a replacement who could join immediately. Mortensen initially declined the role until his son, a devoted Tolkien reader, urged him to accept. He flew to New Zealand within days and joined filming with minimal preparation. His raw, weathered presence transformed Aragorn into the reluctant hero audiences remember today. Number 18. The moment when Gandalf strikes his head on a wooden beam inside Bag End wasn't written in any screenplay. Ian McKellen genuinely hit his head during filming, and his surprised reaction was completely authentic. Director Peter Jackson watched the take and immediately recognized the perfect character moment it created. The accident humanized Gandalf, showing the wizard's awkwardness in a space designed for creatures half his height. McKellen stayed in character beautifully despite the unexpected impact. Editor Jamie Selkirk kept the moment during post-production, understanding how it added warmth to the character. The accident became one of the film's most charming details, demonstrating how attentive filmmaking sometimes means recognizing when reality improves fiction and preserving those unpredictable instants. Number 17. The One Ring wasn't a single prop pulled from a box on filming days. Weta Workshop created approximately 15 different versions before production even began. Prop master Peter Lyon supervised the creation of rings in various sizes, weights, and materials for specific shooting requirements. Some rings were enlarged for close-up photography with hobbit-scale hands, while others were standard size for human characters. Heavier metallic versions were used when the ring needed to drop dramatically or make audible sounds hitting surfaces. Cinematographer Andrew Lesnie ensured each version looked identical on camera, despite the size variations. Sauron's prologue required an entirely separate oversized ring that fit his armored finger. This attention to detail ensured visual consistency across thousands of shots throughout the trilogy's production. Number 16. Director Peter Jackson didn't resist the temptation to place himself somewhere in Middle-earth. He appears briefly outside the Prancing Pony in Bree as a scruffy local eating a carrot. The cameo lasts only seconds, easily missed among the crowd of suspicious villagers. Jackson's appearance became a personal tradition he continued throughout the entire trilogy. Producer Barry Osborne encouraged these playful moments as morale boosters during the grueling production schedule. Costume designer Neela Dixon outfitted Jackson to blend seamlessly with the other extras. Andrew Lesnie framed the shot to include Jackson without drawing obvious attention. These hidden appearances became treasure hunts for devoted fans who scrutinized every frame searching for the director's face among thousands of extras populating Middle-earth. Number 15. The authentic-looking chainmail worn throughout the film wasn't computer-generated or purchased from costume warehouses. Weta Workshop employees spent months hand-linking individual rings to create functional armor for principal cast and extras. Teams connected millions of PVC rings, creating lightweight alternatives to genuine metal that wouldn't exhaust actors during New Zealand's summer heat. This practical approach ensured the armor moved convincingly against actors' bodies during action sequences. The chainmail had authentic weight and drape that visual effects couldn't replicate in 2001. Neela Dixon ensured each armor piece fit properly and photographed beautifully. Costume supervisor Bob Buck oversaw the meticulous assembly process. This commitment to practical craftsmanship gave Middle-earth tangible reality that audiences sensed even without consciously recognizing the extraordinary work involved. Number 14. At the conclusion of filming, Peter Jackson presented meaningful gifts to two actors whose performances anchored the entire trilogy. Elijah Wood received one of the actual One Ring props used during production, a tangible connection to his portrayal of Frodo Baggins. Andy Serkis, whose groundbreaking performance capture work as Gollum would revolutionize digital acting, received another ring prop. Producer Barry Osborne supported these gestures as recognition of extraordinary dedication during the exhausting shoot. The gifts weren't simply memorabilia, but acknowledgments that these actors embodied characters central to Tolkien's mythology. Both Wood and Serkis have spoken publicly about the emotional significance of these presentations. The rings represent their permanent connection to roles that defined their careers and changed cinema forever. Number 13. Among the entire assembled cast, only Christopher Lee could claim a personal connection to the author himself. Lee met J.R.R. Tolkien decades before cameras rolled in New Zealand, giving his portrayal of Saruman unique authority. The veteran actor read The Lord of the Rings annually throughout his life, returning to the text with devotion few could match. Peter Jackson recognized this profound relationship with the source material and valued Lee's insights during production. Lee understood Tolkien's themes, language, and intentions with scholarly depth that informed every line delivery. His passion occasionally created friction when he disagreed with script changes by screenwriters Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens. Andrew Lesnie captured the intensity Lee brought to Saruman's corruption, creating some of the trilogy's most memorable villain moments. Number 12. When Sean Bean prepared for Boromir's tragic final moments, he made creative choices that elevated the scene beyond typical action choreography. Bean suggested performing the arrow strikes through acting rather than relying heavily on stunt coordination and digital effects. Director Peter Jackson embraced this approach, recognizing that Bean's grounded performance would create emotional resonance. The actor's physicality conveyed Boromir's determination to protect Merry and Pippin despite mortal wounds. Cinematographer Andrew Lesnie kept cameras close, capturing Bean's facial expressions as Boromir realizes his redemption. Jamie Selkirk shaped the sequence to emphasize Bean's performance over spectacle. Composer Howard Shore's score supported the moment's tragedy without overwhelming Bean's subtle work. The scene became one of the trilogy's most powerful emotional beats. Number 11. Making hobbits appear smaller than humans required extraordinarily complex visual strategies throughout production. Peter Jackson and Andrew Lesnie employed forced perspective, positioning actors at different distances from the camera to create size illusions. Scale doubles, performers of different heights dressed identically to principal actors, were used in shots where perspective tricks wouldn't work. Visual effects supervisor Jim Rigiel coordinated digital compositing that placed differently sized actors into single frames seamlessly. Production designer Grant Major built multiple versions of sets at different scales to accommodate these various filming techniques. Body double Kieran Shaw stood in for hobbits in wide shots where faces weren't visible. Every hobbit scene required careful consideration of which method would work best. This commitment grounded Middle-earth in physical reality. Number 10. Sometimes the smallest details generate unexpected fan enthusiasm. An unnamed elf extra appearing briefly during the Council of Rivendell caught audience attention despite having no dialogue or story significance. Internet communities began discussing the mysterious background performer, eventually naming him Figwit, an acronym for Frodo is great, who is that? The character was portrayed by New Zealand musician Brett McKenzie, who later found fame as half of the comedy duo Flight of the Conchords. Peter Jackson and producer Fran Walsh found the fan response charming. When production began on The Hobbit years later, Jackson gave McKenzie a proper credited role, acknowledging the fan community's affection. The Figwit story became internet legend, representing early online fandom culture before social media platforms dominated entertainment discourse. Number 9. Tolkien's novel includes a significant epilogue sequence where the hobbits return home to find the Shire corrupted and must liberate it from Saruman's influence. Peter Jackson and screenwriters Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens made the controversial decision to completely omit this chapter from their adaptation. Jackson believed the scouring would feel anticlimactic after the epic battles shown in later films. The choice prioritized narrative momentum over complete fidelity to Tolkien's structure. Some devoted readers felt this deletion removed important thematic material about how war changes those who fight. Barry Osborne supported the decision as necessary for cinematic pacing. Galadriel's mirror sequence retained visual references to the potential destruction, acknowledging the threat even though the actual storyline was removed from all three films. Number 8. Tolkien's description of the creature outside Moria's gates provided minimal visual guidance, leaving concept artists with creative freedom and significant challenges. Designer Alan Lee, whose Tolkien illustrations influenced the entire production's visual style, worked with Weta Workshop to develop the tentacled monster. The team studied various aquatic creatures for inspiration, blending octopus anatomy with elements of other deep water predators. Visual effects supervisor Jim Rigael coordinated the digital creation of the Watcher, ensuring its movement felt organic and threatening. Director Peter Jackson wanted the creature to feel ancient and malevolent without appearing cartoonish. Andrew Lesnie lit the sequence to keep much of the Watcher obscured by darkness and murky water, building tension through partial reveals. The design process involved numerous iterations before approval. Number 7. Despite groundbreaking digital achievements, the film relied heavily on physical craftsmanship that gave Middle-earth tangible reality. Weta Workshop produced thousands of weapons, each aged and detailed to appear genuinely used rather than factory fresh. Prosthetic makeup for orcs, elves, and other creatures required hours of daily application by artists supervised by Richard Taylor. Costume designer Neela Dixon oversaw creation of distinct clothing for every culture Tolkien imagined. Production designer Grant Major built massive practical sets rather than relying on green screen environments that would have simplified filming. Peter Jackson prioritized practical effects because they gave actors real environments to inhabit. Cinematographer Andrew Lesnie could light physical sets with nuance impossible in digital environments of that era. This philosophy created a visual richness that distinguished the trilogy from effects-heavy films. Number 6. The production's extended New Zealand shoot meant cast members brought families for lengthy stays. Peter Jackson incorporated several actors' children into background scenes, creating authentic moments and keeping families together. Sean Bean's daughter appeared as a hobbit child in Hobbiton, barely recognizable among dozens of young extras. Producer Barry Osborne supported this inclusive approach that made the massive production feel more familial despite its epic scale. Using real children rather than professional child actors in non-speaking roles added naturalistic energy to crowd scenes. Neela Dixon outfitted these young extras with the same attention to detail as principal cast. The presence of cast families on location helped maintain morale during the grueling shooting schedule spanning over a year in remote filming locations. Number 5. Neela Dixon didn't create a single iconic look for Aragorn, but rather designed a visual journey reflecting his character arc. The Ranger's initial appearance emphasized earth tones, worn leather, and practical traveling gear appropriate for someone hiding his identity. As the story progresses, subtle costume upgrades reflect Aragorn's growing acceptance of his heritage and leadership role. Dixon collaborated closely with Viggo Mortensen, who brought his own ideas about how a ranger would wear and maintain his equipment. Peter Jackson supported this evolutionary approach that used visual language to reinforce narrative themes. Andrew Lesnie's lighting emphasized textural details, making Aragorn's costumes feel authentically lived in. This subtle progression demonstrated how thoughtful design supports storytelling, allowing audiences to subconsciously track character development through costume changes. Number 4. The theatrical release represented only one version of the film that existed in Peter Jackson's editing room. When the extended edition DVD arrived months later, audiences discovered significant additional material that hadn't appeared in cinemas. Jamie Selkirk restored character moments, extended dialogue sequences, and alternate takes that deepened Middle-earth's world building. The Council of Elrond gained substantial expansion, including more political discussion among representatives of different races. Lothlorien sequences included additional gifts from Galadriel to each member, details important to later story developments. Barry Osborne supported releasing these extended versions as special editions for devoted fans. Composer Howard Shore provided additional music for extended sequences. These alternate versions became definitive editions for many fans who preferred the fuller storytelling despite longer run times. Number 3. The grueling production schedule required cast members to spend over a year in New Zealand, far from homes and families. During breaks from filming, many actors embraced outdoor activities that helped them bond beyond their on-screen relationships. Sean Astin, Billy Boyd, Dominic Monaghan, and Elijah Wood formed especially close friendships, spending time surfing along New Zealand's stunning coastlines. Viggo Mortensen explored the country's wilderness areas with characteristic adventurousness, often camping and hiking during days off. Barry Osborne encouraged these activities as necessary mental health breaks from the intense demands of production. Peter Jackson understood that genuine camaraderie among cast members translated to authentic chemistry on screen. These real-world experiences created lasting bonds that audiences sensed watching the films. Number 2. The Elvish languages spoken throughout the film weren't invented gibberish, but fully realized linguistic systems based on Tolkien's scholarly work. Dialect coach Andrew Jack worked with cast members to ensure proper pronunciation of Sindarin and Quenya, the two primary Elvish languages Tolkien developed with remarkable complexity. Tolkien, a professional philologist, created these languages with consistent grammar, vocabulary, and historical evolution comparable to real-world linguistic development. Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens worked with Tolkien linguist David Salo to create new Elvish dialogue when adapting scenes. Director Peter Jackson insisted actors learn and perform these languages authentically rather than dubbing them in post-production. Cate Blanchett's Galadriel speeches carried genuine linguistic weight that Tolkien scholars could analyze. This commitment elevated Middle-earth beyond typical fantasy world-building. Number 1. As filming concluded, 8 of the 9 principal actors made a permanent decision to commemorate their shared experience. Sean Astin, Sean Bean, Billy Boyd, Ian McKellen, Dominic Monaghan, Viggo Mortensen, Elijah Wood, and Orlando Bloom got matching tattoos of the Elvish numeral 9. John Rhys-Davies, who portrayed Gimli, declined the tattoo, but his scale double Brett Beatty joined the group, maintaining the symbolic 9. The tattoo represented not just their on-screen bonds, but genuine friendships formed during the exhausting year-long production. Peter Jackson and Barry Osborne viewed this gesture as testament to the extraordinary experience they'd created. Each actor placed the tattoo in a personal location. The matching tattoos remain permanent reminders of how rarely film productions create such profound personal connections. The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, didn't just adapt Tolkien's masterpiece. It built Middle-earth with obsessive detail, practical craftsmanship, and creative passion visible in every frame. Peter Jackson's vision combined technological innovation with filmmaking artistry, creating a foundation for modern fantasy cinema. Which hidden detail surprised you most, and what film should we open next?